Is it true?
Cool. Another Monday, Dave and Andrew's coffee chat. And today's going to be
Yeah.
an interesting one, Dave. Tell us why.
Um, because we got some guests on, as always. We're trying to bring people on to talk to you guys. So we do have some pre-canned questions that you guys have already sent through, but we've got Miguel Martins on. We'll be bringing Miguel on in a minute or two. We're just going to do our usual intro, talk what's happening this week, and then we've got Miguel Martins from ABSA Home Loans to talk to us.
Awesome. Yeah, so it was a pretty good week last week, Dave. I see quite a few of the SEPA members doing deals, raising finance through the banks, business partners, tough. I was with a tough client this morning going through her portfolio in Joburg, which is really interesting, running the portfolio from Cape Town. And yeah, it's just been, it seems like people are back in action. I'm getting a sense, Dave, that a lot of people are back wanting to do deals, being aggressive, moving forward, hoping that we're coming out of COVID at some point. Um, but yeah, what are you seeing out there in Cape Town?
Yeah, it's still Cape Town. It's always a little harder here than everywhere else. I actually got a message earlier today from one of my coaching students, John and Akashni. They've got a property that they viewed out in Stellenbosch side for student accommodation, so I'm probably going to go view that with them later this week. So the deals are definitely happening. It's Cape Town, so it's always a little harder to find the good ones, but it's there, 100%.
Yeah, yeah. There's deals everywhere. You've just got to look hard enough, right? And you need to know what you're looking for. Um, if there's a few new people, Dave, online with us now, first of all, welcome to David Andrews' Coffee Chat. But it's all about property. We talk about, our portfolios. What are we doing? What are our students up to? We'll give you guys an update with regards to what's happening during the week with events. And then, like Dave said, we do bring guests on. Today, we've got Miguel Martins, who will in a few minutes be joining us. And Dave, the topic for me is should you, as an investor, should you, and if you are in a job, should you stay in the job or should you leave the job and get into property full time? So I want to know from all of you: do you all recommend leaving your job and getting into property, or do you all say no, you should stay in your job and invest in property on the side? Let us know your opinion on whether leaving a job is a good idea or a bad idea. And Dave, who are you seeing online with us today?
We've got Roth on, we've got Corvus Properties on. Otherwise, everyone's a little slow to come into the chat box. So, guys, if you are joining us, let us know where you're joining from. Answer Andrew's question over there. Do you think you should stay in your job, or do you think you should try to be a full-time property investor from the get-go? Yeah, that's it. Let me go through the schedule real quick for the week. We can talk about what's happening, Drew, and we
Cool.
can go forward from there. So, as always, today is our weekly coffee chat. For those of you who don't know, maybe here for the first time, Andrew and I go live every week on Monday at 1 o'clock. So that's always there for you. Uh, Andrew, you've got a live stream at 12 o'clock on Wednesday with Lebo Khang. That's taking place on Instagram. Do you know what you guys are going to be talking about?
I think we're going to be talking a bit about the new act that's come out, property, just a general conversation about our opinion about the changes which have been made, and what we think about it. So I think it's a casual chat on Instagram. So join myself and Lebo on that chat on the Wednesday. It's 1 o'clock, hey Dave.
Yeah, 12 o'clock according to my schedule.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, maybe my schedule's hopefully my schedule's not wrong. Um, and then that evening we're a content webinar, so we've got expert advisors coming in for PPRA. So as you all know, PPRA came in effect as of 1 Feb. So we've got TPN and British Smart attorneys talking about the Property Practitioners Act. So if you've got some of those questions about how PPRA is going to be affecting us going forward, definitely make sure that you register for that one. There'll be a link in the chat box in a few seconds. You can join us on Wednesday. And then last but definitely not least for this week, the brokerage is running a property buying experience that is taking place out in East Rand, if memory serves, out in Edenvale, where everyone likes to be in Joburg, apparently. Maybe I've just got the wrong circle of friends, hey, Drew.
Yeah, big time.
So that'll be out in Edenvale, and the idea is that we'll sit down, you'll meet down with the brokerage team, talk about what's happening in the brokerage, look at some deals, and then we'll go live onto a property to show you how a deal can look. Drew, do you know what property they're viewing?
I know they're going to be looking at an installment sale agreement, which is quite interesting. They'll explain how that installment sale agreement worked. And if I'm not mistaken, they're viewing one of Mike's properties. He's doing very well here in Edenvale, buying properties, adding flats, rezoning, converting. So it's real hands-on experience. So if you are in or around the Gauteng area, even Dave, we've got people flying in from Durban and Cape Town, and you want to walk the streets and be part of the buying experience, join the team on Saturday.
Awesome. Thanks, Drew. Sounds good. So, guys, that's it for the week. That's what's happening. But let's head on into the chat box, see if there's anyone's intro, and then we can bring Miguel on. We got Mark Berman on. Mark Berman's our development coach. We got Shaheem from Cape Town. That's warm, sunny Cape Town today. Carol's online. Julia, good to have you all in. Vaughan Stevens, one of our regular, and Megs is right there, Andrew.
Okay, brilliant.
Cool. So, Drew, do you want to introduce Megs and we can bring him on?
Yeah. So, Miguel, good afternoon. I was going to say good morning, but good afternoon. Welcome from ABSA. I think let's start with you introducing yourself to our coffee chat listeners, viewers.
Yeah, how's it, guys? Good to be here. And happy Valentine's Day. Oops, can you see this?
Happy Valentine's Day. I almost forgot about that. I love the mug, Mix.
I have to. I was given it this morning. I have to drink out of it, at least for the day.
Okay, cool. Nice one. Good idea. Yeah, Miguel, so you're obviously in the home loans team, right?
Yeah, so I'm a what we call a portfolio manager in the team. I look after our investor customers. We split our home loans customers into first-time buyers, repeat buyers, and investors. And investors typically are customers who have multiple properties, and a large portion of those tend to be investors. So I spend my weeks chatting to investors, understanding their issues, supporting applications when they come into the application process, and then going back, working with credits and our sales teams, etc., to make sure that we are treating our investors well and that we got the best products in the market to try and help investors grow their portfolio.
Absolutely, Miguel. And today we decided to talk about a subject that it's a common question that comes up when people, want to get into the property space. They enjoy it, they get excited, and they then want to leave their job straight away. Or investors who have been in the market for a very long time and decide they want to move away from the job. So we asked our audience a bit earlier on, Miguel, I asked all the coffee chat viewers, should you leave your job? When should you leave your job? What's the impact in getting bonds and leveraging the banks? So before we ask you a few questions around that, Miguel, I think we should touch on things like credit reports and self-employed versus employed. Let's just see what the comments have been, Dave.
Yeah, 100%. So we are getting a couple of people. I'm talking about wanting to become a full-time sourcing agent. Got Caesar over there. What else? Yaku saying he thinks at the moment you're able to bring in more than your salary. Once it finished loading, salary net income, then it would be a good time to consider going full-time property investment. So Yaku is essentially saying be conservative, and once you can replace your salary, then go that way. This Yaku's response again, and that's about all we've had so far on the question.
Okay, so let us know your opinion. Vaughan, what do you think? Julia, Carol, should you leave your job now and get into property full-time, or should you stick at the job for as long as possible? Miguel, just tell us your experience when you're a property investor. You worked at ABSA Home Loans. What's the impact if you had to leave? If you're young, excited, you maybe got a couple of properties under your belt, you want to do it full-time. What's your opinion on that?
So sure. So deciding exactly when to leave your job, to leave your full-time income, and go off on your own, effectively start your own business and rely on your rental incomes and also rely on those rental incomes to help you continue growing. Because I've never ever met a property investor who was saying, I've had enough, I've got enough properties, I'm gonna now retire and just sit and do nothing else. Everyone looks at leaving their jobs to help them grow further. They feel their jobs are constraining them. Exactly when to move, I think, is a personal decision. A lot of things determine that. But definitely knowing, starting to have some thoughts around what the implications are of leaving a full-time job, and that definitely must inform your decision. So maybe a couple of comments. Banks definitely prefer applications or applicants who have a full-time salary, even if and we'll go around back on this. Even if one of the applicants, where there's a joint application, has a full-time salary and the other one is self-employed, is definitely better than just self-employed. Just statistically, self-employed are a higher risk profile, and you'll even see that with certain banks that don't even accept applications for self-employed who are not banking with them already. So what we call new to bank, a Standard Bank customer coming to ABSA, we'll see them. I can tell you more about that. But an ABSA customer who doesn't bank with any other banks arriving near the application, some of the banks won't even entertain the application and it doesn't even get to the decline phase. So that's just it's a risk criteria. Every bank deals with it slightly differently, but definitely being self-employed and whether it's self-employed and you've got a multi-million rand business or self-employed and you're an investor, it tends to fall into the same category.
Absolutely. Dave, yeah?
No, I just wanted to sort of iterate that. I think one of the workarounds I've always done in the past is to have my company employ me, so my companies can pay me an IRP5. I don't own my company, so I don't classify as self-employed. So that's one of the ways that you want to get towards. But there's still tremendous value in earning an additional income stream from a job, even if you cut down to half hours and still have that additional stable income coming in. It only benefits you from an affordability perspective. So it's always a matter of just making sure it's in there, making sure it's the income structured correctly. So if you're doing what Yaku recommends and says once you can replace your income, then it's good time to go full time. Still make sure you get an IRP5. Still make sure you're paying taxes in the same way that a salaried person would be paying taxes, because that's essentially what you need to be doing. Just having the cash flow isn't always going to be good enough.
Absolutely.
100%, Dave. And maybe just a comment on that. So, and I've had this conversation with a couple of investors. If you look at your salary and you compare that to what type of property you need to cash flow the same salary, it's often a paid off property, or it's several. It's actually a relatively large portfolio that's required just to often offset your salary. So as long as you can balance the commitments of a day job with the commitment of managing and growing a property portfolio, it definitely makes it more worthwhile, even just from a cash flow perspective, to hold on to your job.
And I think also on that topic, if there's a couple, if there's a husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, if there's two people, what I see happens often, if the one income can sustain all the expenses and allow the partner to go out there and go into property full time, it's a different conversation. That's what we did back in 15 years ago. Simone was working full time, earning a good salary, and her salary just covered all our expenses. So that allowed me over a period of 6 months, going full time, part time, then consulting to that job, to actually start getting into the property market. Whereas if you're out there and you're single, there's a single household income, to leave your job, even if you want to get into property sourcing, even if you want to become an estate agent, even if you found a really good deal, property takes time. If you take the average estate agent, so the average estate agent I've met, I see them, they join, they get training, they learn how to source properties. But by the time you found a property, it could be 3, 4, 5, 6 months. By the time you get your first commission, it could be another 3 months. I've seen agents go without income for like 10 or 12 months. But even the property arena, getting into the property space, if you are starting out, it seems exciting, it seems good. But remember, all you do for the first year or 2 years is you just shell out cash, buying costs, refurb costs, holding costs. Then you start getting income. But then you buy the second property, and guess what you're doing? You're shelling out cash flow. So if you don't have that sustainable or that income coming in all the time, if you leave the job to get into that, it's a very, very risky situation. My take is you should stay in that job for as long as you can to build up the wealth. Because remember, you want to create multiple income streams. A job is an income stream. Now, yes, if your current salary is 50,000 Rand gross a month, and you're at a point now where you've got 90 or 100,000 Rand gross coming in, and you've got a big percentage in for voids, for maintenance, it's a different conversation, right? And there is no perfect timing. So that's my take in it, eh? What do you see there, Dave? Are there any comments on that, or?
There's a good question to start the conversation off about what benefits, and Miguel, you alluded to it earlier. How does ABSA treat investors differently to some other banks, or what is unique about the offerings that ABSA has?
Yeah, 100%. And then I actually want to come back to a story from our. Actually, maybe if I can answer this just now, I wanted to, one at the premier event on Wednesday night, last week at the Bryanston Country Club. One of the investors there came up to me, and he was in his 4th year. He's doing his honors in investment finance or something like that. So a really nice course. And he just came and asked me my opinion on exactly this. Should he be going into full-time property investing next year, or should he go out and get a job? And a couple of comments I made to him. Obviously at the end of the day, he understands the situation, understands what's possible, and what he has behind him. But never underestimate the benefit of your day job. So whether you are in finance and you understand numbers, you are a project manager, you understand how to manage a lot of moving parts at the same time. You're in some sort of design, so you understand how to package a property together, how to finish it off and put it in its best in its best shape, etc., etc. There are so many skills that we learn on the job that we can apply as property investors, and also it's if you're in a very different industry to property, it also gives you diversity of views on the market, because when you're in property and just looking at the next deal, I think you can tend to get a very focused view on the market and those properties, and you've got to force yourself to almost come out and see what's happening, where the trend's going, etc. So my advice to him, or my thoughts to him, was go in and get a corporate job for the next couple of years. Use that salary, that pay slip to lend from the banks, to start building a portfolio. Learn what you can on the job. Take what you can in terms of learnings back into your investment strategies. But if you are intent on being a property investor, give yourself a deadline as to when you decide to move out of corporate, to move out of a job, because it's also very easy just to get stuck in a salary job, and it's comfortable, and then wife comes along, and family comes along, husband comes along, etc., and it tends to roll on. So remind yourself, even if you write yourself a letter, that's a trick someone told me. Write yourself a letter and open it up in 3 years' time, and remind yourself why you wanted to be a property investor, and remind yourself why and if you should still take that move. And one can always change their mind, but look at your situation, take the best from it, and move forward. Make it part of your overall strategy. So that was just an interesting conversation we had last Wednesday evening when you're networking with investors. But maybe to come back to the very specific question around the benefits for property investors. So our benefits cut across whether you are salaried or whether you're self-employed. If you're salaried, you should get up to 100% LTV for most applications. If you're self-employed, 100% still possible. It just becomes a bit more difficult. We require a lot more information in terms of financials on your entity, etc. But 100% still possible, but probably bank on 80, if not 90%. And especially if you go into a bank that's not your normal bank, if you're self-employed, definitely start banking on 80%, which means you need that 20% deposit. So that's in terms of the LTV side. In terms of allowing rental income to be used for affordability, all banks definitely do that. ABSA allows 80% of existing rental income for affordability. If you're relying, or if that income's coming through a PTY or a trust, then credit will look at the net income that comes after expenses, or rental after expenses. And then when you're looking at your third property, so you own two or you manage two in your portfolio already, the third property, we start to look at future rental income. So that's a rental income that you're expecting to earn from your existing portfolio, and that cuts across to both types of applicants.
Brilliant, thank you for that, Miguel. Just busy watching all the comments coming up. Let's get a vibe. If you've just joined us, ladies and gents, I see a few people have just joined us. Leon, good to see you on there. This is Andrew and Dave's Coffee Chat every Monday at 1, and we've got Miguel Martins from ABSA Home Loans on, discussing and talking around I want to get into property, or I am in property. Should I leave my day job and get into property full time? Thank you for all your comments. Please remember to tag in your friends or colleagues if they are interested in property. Dave, were there any questions or just comments that are coming through? Hey.
Just some comments coming through. One question that's a little bit off track, so we'll leave it for now. But yeah, I think a lot of the people are sort of iterating echoing in what we're saying at the moment. So it's a matter of managing that risk, managing that control. There's an argument that Akashni makes that there's going full time into property. Well, it can be a risk and can definitely challenge that sort of affordability from a bank's perspective. It does give you an opportunity to grow faster. So that's the hard thing that's difficult to balance, and maybe it's a good time to transition to talk about sourcing. If you can be more hands-on and you can be more active and get more deals done, then maybe it's worth it. So Drew, do we maybe want to cover this question, then transition to the sourcing side of it? What is sourcing? How does it work?
Yeah, sure.
And how can it sort of help with that sort of supplementing that income?
So I think there's lots of people out there, Dave, that are either retrenched or they're young and they've got all the time in the world, and they hear about what we call property sourcing. So it's like a buying agent. So we all know these estate agents out there. They go get mandates from sellers. They then sell or they sell someone to home and get paid a commission. What we refer to as property sourcing agents are individuals that go out hunting and looking for investment grade deals for investors. So say, for example, I'd go out now in Edenvale, and whether it's a private sale agent, I'd secure the deal. I'd get the property at a specific price. I'll bring a negotiated deal to the table. I'll get my builders in, and I'll say, hey, Miguel, I've got a deal available here. The deal's done and dusted in terms of I've agreed the price. I've had the builders in. I've got the contracts, but I would like a sourcing fee of say 50,000 rand or whatever that fee is, where we're charging investors for a fee. Now, with the new act that's come out, you're going to have to get your Fidelity Fund certificate. You're going to have to register. So you'll find all the agents that are currently working with the brokerage all going down that road. So there's this argument that says, assuming that you do get your Fidelity Fund certificate and you go out, there's a great opportunity to go out there and source deals. But Dave, you and I have seen it. It's not as easy as going to an agent, knocking on a door, getting a great B&B deal for high cash flow. And sometimes, remember, you've got to be trained up. You don't just sort of go out and do a deal. You've got to be trained up how to get to private sellers. How do you negotiate the OTP? Are you putting under your name or the buyer's name? There's a lot that can actually fall through or go wrong when it comes to sourcing agents. And that's why the brokerage actually this Saturday has got a deal buying experience. Got the wording right there, which isn't really around sourcing, but they discuss sourcing. They've got a deal sourcing boot camp. There's actually training around how to become a qualified sourcing agent. But I've seen some sourcing agents, we train them, they go out there, and very quickly they get success. But there's some sourcing agents out there where unfortunately, they're in month 6 or month 7, they had some great deals, but those great deals fell through last minute. So my advice is, do not expect to get into property sourcing or investing and expect it to solve your solution even in year 1, right? If you're going to leave your job, I remember going back 15 years ago, my property coach said to me, whatever you do, Andrew, even though Simone's got the income, when you do leave, when you decide to write that resignation letter, make sure that you've got 6 months buffer in your bank account. Make sure you've got a big pot of cash that you can always fall back on. So now I've got 2 exits. I've got Simone's salary and I've got my own cash pot. So just that youngster, Miguel, that you're talking about, he probably doesn't have a partner. I'm making the assumption. So if he doesn't go out and get a job or get work, he doesn't know anything about property sourcing yet or the property world. He's still young. It's going to take him a long time for him to get trained up and to get that first deal across the line. I see it too often when people just jump the ship and then they feel the financial pressure. What do you think, Miguel?
Yeah, Andrew, I think people see the brochure and they want to believe the brochure. And they think, I can do this. I've seen it. I've read it. I saw the webinar. I even met someone, and bang, off they go. And I think whether it's property or any other business, working for yourself is tough. You don't have someone saying, you've got to be at work at 8. You've got to get these things done by the end of the day or by the end of the week. There's a lot of self-motivation, self-discipline that's required, and also being very clear on what you need to do to be able to get that cash flow in. When I was speaking to another investor the other day in December, and they're still working, but their strategy is that they actually got too busy. They started mismanaging he started mismanaging his portfolio. But he wasn't quite ready to leave his current job. He enjoys it. Anyway, his portfolio wasn't able to carry him just yet. So he brought in a property manager on a 6-month contract. And his plan is that he renegotiates this contract every 6 months. But what he's really doing is whilst doing that, he's able to manage his existing portfolio. He's able to grow his portfolio whilst keeping his day job. In the next 18 months, 2 years, he should be able to, with good notice, terminate his property manager and be able to move from his day job into being a fully fledged property investor. So it's about different strategies, and it all depends on yourself and when you're ready to make that move. But I think, like you're saying, one has to be very realistic when they're ready to do that. There can't be anything worse than going out on your own. You don't quite get the cash flow you want, and you start missing payments, and your credit score starts turning. And then that is, whether you're employed or not, it is really difficult to turn that around. And then you got to give it time, because self-employed, income or not, if you have a bad credit record, you're going to have difficulty with obtaining finance from the banks, and probably even partnering with other people, with angel investors. If they go do a credit check on you and they see that that credit check is not a strong, robust, green light credit check, then you might struggle to find partners. So really be careful. I think you do need to bet on yourself. You do need to take the risk, but do it with eyes wide open. Get the education behind you before doing so.
Absolutely. And Miguel, I can see there's a question there from McGlashan, and we'll get it up for you now. So the question was, Miguel, in a previous seminar, you may have mentioned that ABSA offers bonds to businesses based on the future income rental of the deal. Is that correct? How does that work? Will ABSA grant an 80% bond for cash positive deals to businesses / self-employed?
Okay, maybe let me reconstruct that, because the way it's written there isn't quite correct. We will offer future rental income to investors who already have 2 properties. Their third property, we can add that income to the application to finance that property. I think where the business's comment comes in is whether you're buying that third property in your name, in a PTY or a trust, we can still add that income to the application. So it's not that we finance businesses per se. We do financing for PTYs and trusts. Of course, the directors or the trustees stand as sureties. So another point, even if that trust and that PTY is profitable, standing on its own 2 feet, the trustees or the directors that stand surety for that. Oops, sorry, got a call coming in. The directors and trustees that stand surety for the application must have a good credit record and ideally income in their own right. So, at the end of the day, the banks are lending you a large sum of cash, and we need to ensure that the cash is safe. And I think once you understand that, once you understand the rules of the game, it's easy to play the game.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you for that, Miguel. Dave, what are you seeing out there?
Pretty much that's it. It's not too many questions coming through. One fairly practical question over here from Bafana. I just got approved for my first property. I want to move in next. What advice can I get?
Miguel, do you want to answer that?
Got the approval.
My first
got
property.
Approval doesn't a property, I think.
I want to move to the next. Okay, so seems like he hasn't quite registered his first property yet, and he's ready to go on find a second property and kind of really trying to scale up his portfolio. So Bafana, you're just getting started. I think you probably just need to give yourself a little bit of time and space. I think finding a property is the first step. It's an incredibly important step, finding a property, and assuming that the numbers work well. You now have to go and get tenants. You have to put the tenants in. You have to, assuming you don't have to renovate the property, and you have to manage those tenants. I never want to say slow down on growth. Make sure that your growth is manageable, that it's prudent, and that you don't get yourself into trouble with possibly holding 2 properties and then you're struggling to find tenants, and that's just gonna get you into trouble. The bank will lend you the maximum of your affordability. So what that means is that if you can afford, if with your existing income you can afford a R1 million loan, the bank will lend you 2 home loans, will approve 2 home loans of 500,000 each because you have the affordability. But just do be careful that you don't get yourself in over your head, and rather take it slow up front, get to understand this business, even if you have the education and the skills behind you. The deals are out there. As Andrew was saying, Andrew and Dave were saying early on, there are deals out there. If you're consistent in looking for the deals, you'll definitely find them. But make sure that as you add each additional property to the portfolio, that it adds to the portfolio. If I look at my portfolio, I've got some properties that I shouldn't have purchased, and those properties actually took me back in terms of growth. So make sure that you continue adding and growing your portfolio with each additional property.
Absolutely. And from your side, Dave?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. I don't think I have much else to add to that.
Cool. Yeah, good answer. And I see there's a few other things. Shahim, how do I get hold of Miguel to review my current property portfolio with ABSA? So Miguel, Step and Connect, I've posted the link where they can get in contact with you through Step and Connect.
Yeah, Andrew, I tend to get quite a few emails every week on that. So that's a great way of getting hold of me, and happy to respond directly. I think it's a combination. I'm not necessarily going to sit down with investors and go through their property portfolios. That's called advice, and that's something that as bankers we can't do without having the right accreditation. But definitely in combination with someone from SAPN, yourselves as coaches, understanding that portfolio, then understanding what's available in terms of affordability. Absolutely happy to help with that and look at how to grow and scale. Super happy to do that.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Miguel. So, Dave, what I reckon we should do is let's go to what is happening this week and the next week, if there's any events, because quite a few people have joined us. Darren Francis has asked a question around the process of providing building loans. So, Darren, we'll come back to your question. Let's just go and see what is happening this week in SAPN and TPA.
Cool. 100%. Waiting for it to load. So guys, naturally, we're here at Coffee Chat. That is happening again next week, Monday, 1 o'clock. We're always live. Let me just open that and double check what we have planned. We've got Intergen on next Monday, so that's going to be a good one to be looking forward to. We've got a expert advice webinar this Wednesday night, so that's Wednesday 6 o'clock. That's with British Smart Attorneys and TPA, and talking about the PPRA and the changes that that's going to be having on you as a property investor. The brokerage has a property buying experience this Saturday, so that's pretty much most of the day from about 9 until about 2 o'clock on a Saturday, running you through some live deal analysis, showing you exactly what's happening, and taking you through a live deal. A little further forward, 23rd, Cape Town has a premier event, which is really good to get back to in person. I know Joburg had a really fun one last week, so that's good to have. The 24th is a support webinar, and Andrew, you've got a 2-day workshop up in Johannesburg on the 26th. Do you maybe want to tell us what the 2-day workshop's about while I mute myself?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm super excited about it, Dave, because it's a live in-person 2-day property workshop where normally it's a 1-day and it's online. So I'm going to be bringing like all different property experts, from whether you want to build and develop, whether you want to do installment sale agreements. I'm bringing different property investors into the room to educate you, to run through the numbers, to look at what is next. So if you are stuck and you need some property funding solutions, if you're looking to build your network, if you're looking to get some motivation, if you want to kickstart, myself, the property coaches of the academy, and just members of SAPN are going to be in that room talking property. We'll be running some exercises. So I'll give you scenarios. I'll put you into groups, and you're going to try to solve those. So if you're just looking to go to the next level, whether you want to become a developer or go down installment sale agreement routes or student accommodation, because I've got 2 days with you on the 26th and the 27th of February, it's going to be super powerful. Just get in contact with Alani, and Dave will put Alani's email address there. Drop her a quick email. We'll send you the link and just get involved. and then we'll come back to Miguel. There's a couple of questions around the process of providing building loans. Miguel's been reading some of your comments. So Miguel, yeah, give us your view on that and some more comments.
Yeah, great. So building loans, is a bit more of a complex process. So you need to go so once you found a vacant land, you effectively need to you don't need to have purchased the vacant land, but you obviously got to take an OTP on it. You need to get approved building plans on that land, or all the approvals, the building plans, etc. So there's some time and effort involved in that, and then get a quote for those building plans. And then you go to you come to the bank, you come to ABSA. We will look at the quote, we'll look at the building plans to make sure that make sense, and we'll ultimately we've got a specialized process that checks that the property to be built will match the market value in that area. Once we come to all that, we'll usually do about a 90% loan to value if you're building your own home, or up to 100% if you're building in an estate or a developer's building for you. And then we register that, and then as you build, we do progress payments. So you're building very simply put, you're building a 1.5 million rand building. You build 300,000, we then pay out 300,000. You carry on building, and we pretty much pay as you build, and until the last rand. So relatively it's a lot more complex as a process, as opposed to just buying a straightforward home. But definitely great opportunities if you find land in a nice area, or if you find a property that's underdeveloped, so a small house on a good sized land with large homes around it, and you want to extend it significantly, we also do building loans on that. So that often poses some good opportunities. That's on the building loan side. One thing I also wanted to mention, we're talking about joint applications, and if you're self-employed, apply with someone else who is employed and has a payslip. There is a trap in that. Trap is maybe a strong word. There's a proviso. So a friend of mine, she bought a property with her sister, and they bought it as an investment property, actually, between the two of them. She then got engaged, she got married, and she went to, sorry, this was before she got married. She then went to find another property for herself. What happened though was, because she had used up a good portion of her affordability with doing the joint with her sister, she actually wasn't able to buy another property for herself. Because remember, the joint applicants are joint and severally liable. That means that you don't take a loan of 1 million and split it between the two of you as your liability. You each owe 1 million. And the problem is that when the bank came to look at her, and she was applying for a further million, I'm not sure what she was purchasing, she did not have the affordability because she had tied it up in the previous purchase. So when joining someone in an application, just keep that in mind. Obviously, if it's your husband, girlfriend, husband, wife, spouse, partner, etc., that's fine, because in principle, your next property you're going to purchase together anyway. But just be careful with helping somebody out, because that can limit you in terms of your own purchases later.
Awesome. Thank you, Miguel. Awesome advice there. Dave, what are we seeing?
No, pretty much that. There's a few other people weighing in. A lot of people asking how to get in touch with the team, which is always good. So, guys, the emails are over there. In terms of clarification, Miguel, just in registering a new business, for the business to get a loan in its personal in its capacity as a business, so a business loan, how long does that take for that track record to be considered established? And is there any consideration of a new business hiring someone? So there's someone here in the chat box. I'm struggling to find it. They registered their business in 2019 and they're paying a salary. There is Justin. So Justin's taking a salary out of that business. How does that get considered by the banks?
So as soon as you are a majority shareholder or a director in the business, we look at you and the business together. The business financials, if it's a going concern, you need 2 years worth of financials. If you have your lending entirely with ABSA, and our credit managers, our credit team can actually look into those accounts and whether it's the transactional accounts that sit behind the business or not. There is some leniency in terms of the financials, but then there's additional requirements from the accountants in terms of requesting solvency letters, etc. But that's when everything's with one bank. Of course, that limits you going to the other banks, and you never want to do that. I'll say that here, but you really want to have as many options as possible. But once you have all your business with ABSA, our credit guys will look at you from the bank side, and where those financials are lacking, they will make a decision. There is a different angle in that when a PTY is newly formed, and then the question I often get asked is, must my PTY run for 2 years empty before I can apply for to finance a property within the PTY? And it's definitely not the case. Actually, that's the easiest one to finance in. If the PTY is newly formed, there's no debt, there's no liabilities, and actually the lending into that PTY is relatively easy because we just look at yourself as a director, or yourselves as the directors behind the PTY. So when it gets to lending in PTYs and self-employed, the one piece of advice I definitely would leave is start to get to know a home loans consultant, one of ABSA's property finance specialists, and just get to work with them to understand you and how you need to set yourself up. If you qualify for private banking, get a banker on board, sign up for a banker, get that banker to understand what you're about. Make sure you get the right banker on board. If they're on a banker who understands lending, get another banker. And that's something I actually discussed last Wednesday night at the Premier event. But at this point, you want someone who understands you, who can solve for you, and also can guide you as you start building out your portfolio, especially when you're self-employed. Andrew, at that wealth planner, at that wealth builder session you got in a couple of weeks' time.
Yes,
I think that's as an attendee there, that's a great opportunity for attendees to build out their 3 to 5 year plans in terms of what does if I'm working, I want to exit. How do I build up a portfolio to exit? And if I looked at what you're covering there, it's definitely all the elements to actually for someone to build their plan, right?
Absolutely. So just to give a context there, Miguel, so if you just joined us, Miguel attended one of our one-day wealth builder workshops. That's exactly what I'm doing in 2 weeks' time, except it's a 2-day wealth builder workshop where it shows you what the next step is. How to take that next step. Absolutely, Miguel. That's why they're so popular, right? And people are always joining. But I see there's a last question there for you, Miguel. Let's see. The greetings from China. Yeah?
Sure. Yep. This person is about to go to bed. China's like 7 hours ahead of us.
So in short, wants to see what's the situation with signing bond applications. So this is a fairly common question we get at the moment, especially with COVID. It's what can be signed in person, what can be signed virtually, or what has to be signed in person, I guess is more accurate to say.
I'm going to be honest. I'm not quite sure what the COVID situation is with signing documents. I do understand that you can't sign your mortgage agreements and your deeds office paperwork virtually. It needs to be what they call a wet signature. I think that was the requirements. I bought property when I was in London about 10 years ago, and I had to go to London to the embassy or the consulate there by Trafalgar Square to actually go and sign at the time. Now that was quite a few years ago. I think that's still the case, but I don't know what COVID has done with that. I mean, if that customer is with ABSA, his attorneys should be advising him on how to go about this, because this actually happens more often than fairly regularly. And if he is having challenges, he's welcome to reach out to me to see how I can assist from this side. But we're not going to be able to change what the law requires. and you know. Yeah, so yeah, that can be a difficult one. But sorry, Dave, I'm not able to actually give you a clear answer on that one.
No, I'm with you. So I think for me, the common workaround in the past when I worked in the UK is that I couldn't get to the UK. Find a attorney who's got offices in both countries, and they can help facilitate that signing process. It's often that requirement, and you'll have to ship documents internationally. It's just part of it. But at least then you've got someone who can verify that you were in fact there for the signature, and that is it. So there's unfortunately, I agree with Miguel. It's one of those things. There's not a ton of clarity here either. What can be signed digitally? What can be signed in person? Leases come up. You can do other asset finance virtually, so it's up in there.
Yeah, the benefit of being over there is that your affordability with the exchange rate is massive. So it's definitely, you know, so it's a great opportunity whilst you're working there, and if you're there somewhat permanently, but it definitely does have its challenges.
Cool. Thanks, Migs. I think we're going to be calling it there. Guys, there is a link in the chat box. Miguel, do you have any final words? Any other comments you want to just add in here?
I think from any aspect, obtaining home loan finance is complex. The banks have their requirements. The requirements are fairly similar across the banks. I understand what they are. I tend to get a lot of investors come to me and say, but why, and push back, etc. They are what they are. I understand the rules of the game, and then get creative in how you play the game. Once you understand that, structure yourself, then every single application thereafter is going to be so much easier. So I often tend to take challenges and even declines in home applications as learning opportunities on what not to do the next time, or what to do the next time. So yeah, but I think between yourself, Dave, Andrew, and definitely myself, happy to support the applications, happy to give to get the learning and share that with everyone online.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Miguel. Thank you, Dave and Miguel. That was an awesome session. Loads of comments. Comments still coming through, which is great. Jaco giving Frank some advice because Jaco lives in Belgium and he's busy buying properties in South Africa. It's good to see so many South Africans out there. We've got investors in England, in Australia, and there's Frank in China still buying and investing in South Africa. So, Frank, if you need support and help, reach out and we'll do what we can to support you. For anyone else that wants to join myself on that 2-day Wealth Builder workshop, speak to Alani, join us for the last weekend of Feb. And then there's obviously a few events happening this week regarding the new act that came out. Make sure that you just jump on and learn more and network more and keep growing your network. And we'll see you next Monday at 1 o'clock, myself and Dave. So, Miguel, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Miguel. Thanks, Drew.
Cheers, guys. Have a good day.
Cheers, everyone. Have a good one.